When you hear hoofbeats, don't expect to see a zebra. Turns out I have stripes. Welcome back to Zebra Life 24/7. My name is Holly and this is episode 3. Today's episode will be part 2 of 2 of my story on my zebra journey, summarizing from the beginning until now. I mean, this all must be in my head, right? Anxiety and depression were absolute beasts to work through. Every time something would come out of my mouth about some new freaking ailment, I felt like a straight up hypochondriac. Combine this with the get tougher mentality I was raised with and multiple negative tests, you start to feel crazy. You stop telling the doctors what you're experiencing because you get nowhere. As long as I'm not dying, cool, I'm good. Fast forward 7 years and multiple other aches and pains, things started to get worse. I developed Raynaud's in my nipples, and yowza, that hurts like a beast. Imagine your nipples being on fire. That's what it's like. Things really started to become painful for me after my last was born, and that was almost 3 years ago. I love the outdoors and going on walks. I'd walk 5 miles a day on most days, but my hip would become very painful. But I pushed through it. It must be something I pulled. My hip didn't get better. It kept getting worse and worse. Eventually, I had to stop going on walks. My sister also happened to move to Arizona at this time, and I figured this must be stress related to that. She was my last kin around. I must not be able to handle myself as well as I thought I could. This is when I really started to spiral and knew that I needed more help than just myself. I'm not good at asking for help. I hate it. It makes me feel weak. That's my own personal struggle that I have learned to work through. The worse my hip got, the less I could do. I couldn't play with my kids the way I used to at all. Walks helped me keep my sanity. I started to feel like I was going crazy. It wasn't until my OBGYN of 9 years finally said to me, Holly, the things you are experiencing are not normal. You have had complicated and painful pregnancies. You shouldn't just be dealing with throwing up nearly every day, and just because you're a mom of 3 doesn't mean you should be as exhausted as you are. Let's get some referrals out to different specialists and go from there. And that was over 2.5 years ago that I started on a new journey in life. The first referral was to a rheumatologist, and I was officially diagnosed with lupus. I asked her if that was why my hip hurt, so we got an x-ray. It appeared to be a bone overgrowth on my hip, a pincer and cam impingement, and that I just needed to do physical therapy to get stronger. My gut said it was something more, so I went to an orthopedic specialist. The imaging confirmed that I had the tilted pelvis, backwards socket, and deformities, but they didn't appear to be what my issue was. Whenever he would do the physical exam, he said I would or should have a lot of pain with it if it was affecting me. He gave me prednisone for inflammation and we did a cortisone shot. Nothing, like at all. I went back, desperate, and I was told my next step was to see a lumbar specialist because it must be my sciatica at this point. Imaging, of course, didn't show a whole lot of craziness, nothing that would indicate the type of pain that I was having. At this time, the current physical therapist had asked me if I had ever heard of a particular disorder that is rarely diagnosed. I had no clue what he was talking about. I looked it up and things started to add up pretty quickly. The problem was, no one knew what to do with me or where to send me. I finagled my way to see a sports medicine specialist who I had heard might be familiar with the disorder. She was my first sign of hope that this pain was going to end. It had just progressed, becoming more and more debilitating. She immediately recognized that I clearly had hypermobile joints. Okay, so not super abnormal to be a bit hypermobile. And I knew I was flexible. But the more we talked, the more likely it seemed that I have this rare disorder, which is super hard to diagnose. And there are not many people that can. She gave me a cortisone shot in my bursa, which helped that part of my hip, but nothing else. I was referred to the rheumatology department down at Mayo. I was also sent to another physical therapist who specializes in stabilizing my body and helping me learn to basically re-walk. I had to unlearn 35 years of using my joints instead of my muscles. I've been in physical therapy now for a little over a year, twice a week, including water therapy. My hip pain was not getting any better at all, but I started to feel my muscles getting stronger. I was able to stand for a little bit longer before the pain became too much and my spine started to give out. I got denied by Mayo because they said I needed to be seen by another molecular geneticists, or molecular genetics. So another referral was sent. I got denied by them, stating that I needed to be seen by a rheumatologist. I told the lady what was going on, and she told me that oftentimes people like me have the best chance to go straight to the website for this disorder to look into resources. I found 3 specialists in the state of Minnesota that are qualified to diagnose the disorder. It's also really hard to get seen by them. Meanwhile, I also got denied out by the University of Minnesota. They told me the exact same thing that the Mayo did. I went back for another trial cortisone injection into my sciatica. The orthopedic doc who was doing an injection stated to the residents in the room that I very likely had this disorder, and that is why the injection into my ligament went through like butter. No pushback. That's how loose my ligaments are. At this point in my journey, no one knew how to help me. Like, no one. We started to schedule acupuncture and an integrative medicine. I was told we needed to start thinking outside the box. After months of cortisone injections in multiple areas and bouncing back and forth from specialist to specialist, the docs decided it was time for me to seek out integrative medicine. We needed to take a whole body approach to figure out what might be going on with me. For the first time after seeing the integrative specialist, I felt like we were getting somewhere and I was able to piece together this dang puzzle of my body. The doctor who specializes in this doctor specialized in Western and holistic medicine. She was brilliant. I started to cry, of course. It was a hope that I had been dying to find. She listened to what I had to say. She didn't just say, "I don't know," and send me on my way. I apparently have a hypermobile bowel. Who knew that was even such a thing? Which has also caused me to become malnourished. Along with the racing heart and other big words I didn't get, the intense fatigue I've had all my life isn't a figment of my imagination. She was more surprised that I have gone this long in my life without getting answers. I can't begin to describe the heaviness that was lifted in those moments. I spent 20 plus years taking multiple prescriptions for all my comorbidities, around 13 different medications. These medications barely scratch the surface of helping my conditions. In fact, after self-educating, I have come to learn that many of these medications were actually harming me because no one was able to see the whole picture. I have faulty connective tissue, which makes up your entire body and system. One of the major complications I suffer from is hypermobility. For many people, hypermobility does not cause pain and medical complications. For those like myself, complications can be severely debilitating, complex, and extremely painful. When you suffer from whole body, all system complications, doctors are not equipped to deal with this. It takes a large team of specialists to work with alleviating as much pain as possible. Sufferers like myself have to become their own voice and advocate within the healthcare system because there is no one-stop shop for people like me to have. I have to become hyper educated about my own body so I can present it and break it down to medical specialists. It becomes extremely draining, exhausting, and at times hopeless. But I've reached a conclusive diagnosis of lupus in November of 2021. The complexities of hypermobility can take many people decades to uncover. In 2022, I was finally diagnosed with hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos. Did you know that doctors only get about 15 minutes of training in school on my disorder? For me, it doesn't make any sense as to why people are so bitter towards doctors not understanding this condition. We are rare. So it's up to us to help educate our doctors as we go through this zebra journey. I found that by working with them instead of against them, it leads to a lot more answers and teamwork to come up with the best resolution to get help. I spent all of 2022 doing whatever it took to get me healthier. I religiously did pool therapy, used KT tape, press tax. I saw an occupational therapist, lymphatic specialist, chiropractor, and acupuncturist who also does visceral manipulation and got orthotics. Every day, I pay very close attention to how my body moves, making sure that I'm not hyperextending my joints as much as possible. At one point, I was told that my joints were like that of a 70-year-old because of all the damage they have taken over the years with my conditions. I knew that I had to do everything in my power to retrain my body to walk and move a different way. Unless you're a hypermobile person, it's hard to explain how much effort it takes to keep all of your joints in line and only use your muscles. It's easy for me to forget to bring my foot with me when I twist or bring my knee with my hip. It takes actual concentration. I am on a plethora of supplements, which I will talk about in another episode. I use a biopump machine to increase circulation. I also went on to get diagnosed with additional things such as fibromyalgia, lymphedema, multi-directional shoulder instability, and more. 2 months ago, I ended up having surgery on my hip to shave down the cam and pincer impingement. They also found a third impingement in there as well. Repaired the labrum and repositioned the labrum since it slipped out of place. These are things that I couldn't achieve through therapy. It took me a few years to be able to get the surgery. Because of my hypermobility, I have a complex case. I had to find a surgeon who knew how to confidently work with hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos. The healing process will look different for me. It's important that some scar tissue is created in the hip to help keep it in place, but we also don't want to lose range of motion. Often hypermobile people that get this procedure done end up needing the surgery again. Since I have worked so hard to recognize where my muscles are, the hope is that I have gained enough control over my body to stop using my joints in a negative way. That's all I have for you today. Stay tuned for weekly episodes of Zebra Life 24/7 airing at 3:30 p.m. every Saturday. Episode 4 will be focused on where I'm currently at on my zebra journey. Please click the subscribe button below and remember, perception is your reality.